Okay, so that brings us into summer, and obviously with that comes amazing things. But first, on June 10th is the Warcraft movie. All I have to say about it is it actually looks a little better than I would have expected, but we don't know anything about it. So we'll see on that. A week later, on June 17th, we get the sequel that feels a little late, but it's Pixar, so we'll take it and we'll love it. It's Finding Dory. Though I am gonna admit, I don't know as of right now if I'm that excited for it. Part of me feels like I'll just stay home and watch Inside Out again. The Bing Bong scene, of course. Let's move on. Okay, and then a week after that, June 24th, a movie that is very close to my heart and that has a title that does not at all correspond to its release date, Independence Day Resurgence. Despite what I said a second ago, I think this sequel, even though it's 20 years later, is actually not too late at all. In fact, I think it's right on time. But that's only because they've got one of the best ideas for a sequel that I've seen in a long time, with humanity having actually learned from what happened in the first movie and the alien technology that's left over. I mean, they built a freaking solar system defense unit and all kinds of crazy weapons, and it's just a great example of, rather than just repeating the same thing as the first one, they took that original idea and built upon it and heightened it. And I know that this franchise isn't that important to all of you, but since I grew up reciting that speech so much that it actually became part of my 4th of July tradition, that's true.
Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.
I just can't wait to see that world again. And what's even more exciting is if this movie works, if the sequel does well, it's actually supposed to launch a whole new trilogy, and that just excites me so much. Welcome to Earth, indeed. Okay, then actually in the month of July, on July 15th, we get the new Ghostbusters movie, which is actually coming 27 years after the last Ghostbusters movie, though this one seems to be mostly a reboot with its all-female cast. So I actually find a lot of those ladies incredibly hilarious, so while I still know nothing about the movie, I've got my fingers crossed, and I am hoping for the best. July 22nd, we get Star Trek Beyond, and I don't know, I've got to see more from it still. I really liked the first one, and the last one wasn't quite as good as that one, but this one's still far off, so we'll see. Here's what I will say about this franchise. It's doing a really good job as standing apart now. It's not fair anymore to compare it to Star Wars, even though both updates were relaunched by J.J. Abrams. The fact that Justin Lin was chosen to direct this one cements those differences even more. Star Trek has become a bit more like Fast and Furious in space. But actually, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Those movies are pretty fun to watch. And also, Simon Pegg wrote this one. Yeah, actually, you know what? I changed my mind. That's my birthday week. I'm feeling pretty good about it. I'm gonna give it a chance. Woo! Excited for Star Trek. Moving on. July 29th brings us another sequel, and it's Godzilla Resurgence. And it's actually not a sequel to the Gareth Edwards 2014 one. It's instead the 29th or 30th of the Japanese ones. If you're a Zilla head, get excited. Otherwise, moving on, we are into August, and boom, Suicide Squad. August 5th. Now, I will say this movie early on had some stuff that looked not so great, but DC has since done a really good job of getting me excited for it. I'm actually really curious now to see what Jared Leto's gonna do with the Joker. I wanna see Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. Actually, almost all of the characters seem pretty exciting, and that's actually my favorite thing about this. In March, we'll get introduced to our starting hero lineup with the Dawn of Justice, and just a little over 4 months later, we're getting a ton of really interesting villains. Like, DC's throwing us headfirst into their cinematic universe. I wouldn't even be surprised if they start giving standalone movies to the villains too, but in general, just that the fact that this is all finally happening, that's just very cool. I'm very happy for you, DC. Now, I know that I haven't mentioned any TV shows for a bit, but do remember that summer's always low on TV premieres. I'll remind you that the release dates for Luke Cage and Iron Fist haven't been announced yet, though my guess is we'll probably get Luke Cage maybe somewhere in the fall, not too far off of when Jessica Jones premiered. As for Iron Fist, nothing's official, but I have a feeling we're gonna be well into 2017 before we meet Mr. Dan Rand. Speaking of shaky release dates, on October 7th, we're supposed to get Channing Tatum in the role that maybe he wasn't born to play, but will still be fun nonetheless, Gambit. The issue is Channing and the director, Doug Liman, they didn't get locked in until pretty recently, so it just seems kind of unlikely that they'll be able to meet that date. It's pretty soon. Don't see that as a bad thing though, because the last time that a Fox-owned superhero movie got rushed, we got the not-so-Fantastic Four.
Say that again?
No thank you. I'd rather they take their time and do it right. I haven't heard much about the script, but Doug Liman directed Edge of Tomorrow, and I freaking loved that movie. But with Fox's plans to make X-Men and Deadpool and Gambit all part of the same cinematic universe and cross those characters over, which is potentially an awesome idea, it's just extra important that the individual movies can live up to their expectations. Basically, just Fox, mon chéri, take it easy. Oh, but speaking of impossible expectations that I think might still somehow get met, on November 4th, things get strange. Benedict Strange, Dr. Cumberbatch. Yes, you get it. Doctor Strange. It's one of the most interesting characters in the Marvel Universe, and he's being played by one of the best actors in our universe. And it's the first Marvel movie after Civil War, so we'll be seeing that aftermath. And Thanos is still looking for Infinity Stones. There's still 2 out there. I think we'll get 1 in this movie. And it's gonna be weirder than a lot of Marvel movies have been, which is, I'm just so excited for them to keep expanding this universe. I'm very excited for this movie. And just before we get to the last few juggernauts of the year, I'm gonna take a second here to mention season 3 of Black Mirror. We don't have a release date for it yet. We just know that Netflix acquired it and says to expect a bunch of episodes in 2016. But I'm serious, this is one of the best TV shows around, especially if you've ever wished that something like The Twilight Zone would come back, reflect on our current modern society. That's what this is. It's creepy, it's sometimes beautiful. It's all about what a messed up future we might be headed toward. Don't even research it, just check it out. Make sure to go at least more than 1 episode though. The first one's a little extra weird. It's still good. It's got a pig in it and you'll see what I mean. Just stick with it. A very interesting show. If you like Ex Machina, you might like this. Moving on. Okay, so as 2016 nears its end, we've only got 3 more movies that I think people are gonna go pretty nuts for. On November 18th, we return to the Harry Potter universe with Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. And that's set 70 years before the Harry Potter movies. And this time it flips to the other side of the pond. It all takes place in New York. Also, did you know that if this movie does well, which yeah, it's gonna do very well. It's supposed to launch an entire new trilogy of these movies, so let's just hope that the curse of prequel trilogies does not affect Wizards. Okay, and finally, we are in December of 2016, and there are 2 movies worth mentioning here. One is the Assassin's Creed movie that comes out on December 21st, though we don't know like anything about it, other than the fact that Michael Fassbender's wearing the cloak, which that alone is pretty interesting. But the other movie, just a few days earlier, on December 16th, is the one that I think has a chance at topping Civil War as the biggest hit of the year, Rogue One. Now, I'm not guaranteeing that it's gonna beat out Civil War, but when you remember that the title is actually Rogue One, a Star Wars story, then you remember why it might come out on top. Rogue One's actually incredibly interesting. It's a story of how the first Death Star plans got to Princess Leia before the events of A New Hope, and it's the beginning of the Star Wars anthology movies, which is like an attempt to blow out the Star Wars universe, kind of like how the Marvel universe already is. For people that thought Force Awakens was too much like A New Hope, Rogue One might be exactly what you're looking for. Everything about it suggests that it's gonna be completely different from any Star Wars movie we've ever had before, and it just in general, it sounds like a great movie. And even if it only does half of what The Force Awakens did, it'll still be one of the most successful movies of all time. But either way, let's remember, if Civil War comes out on top or Rogue One, you can tell me in the comments, but they're both owned by Disney. Because as the saying goes, you never bet against the mouse. All right, so that's 2016 in terms of what film and TV properties I think the internet's gonna be pretty excited about this year. But if you cannot wait, if you're just like too pumped and you need more content right now, there's a bunch of links in the description to other videos we've made about a bunch of those movies and TV shows. So go give those a watch, and by the time you're done, I'm sure all of these things will have already come out. Now, if you think there's something that I missed, you are more than welcome to put in the comments, but if you actually wanna have a big impact on what we plan to cover this year and you want this thing to be included, you gotta fill out our poll. There are links to it in the description, really easy to find. One is a version of the poll that'll be on our website. Our website, by the way, covers all of this stuff all the time. And the other one is a link that goes through our Facebook fan page. The benefit of that one is you don't just tell us what you care about, but actually how much you care about it. We'll share the results on our official Twitter @NewRockstars in the next couple of weeks. But remember, all we're trying to do is get on the same page as you. So you can also just hit us up directly. I'm Filup. You can hit me up @Fimo on Twitter, @FimoKnows on Instagram. If you want to suggest a picture I should cover or something, you can hit up Ted.
Hi, Ted.
@TedMarsden on Twitter. We know what we like. We just want to know what you like. So let us know. Clearly, we've got a lot of work to do and a lot of videos to make. So we'll see you in those. Gotta go. Bye.